Now I'm going to speak about May the 13th, but in a very personal way, because unlike most of you, when it happened, I was not here. I was holed up, my wife and I and our little girl, in a small English village called Linton in Devon. We wanted it to be a quiet holiday, and therefore we didn't buy newspapers, we didn't even bother to turn the radio on. However, on the morning of the 14th of May, we woke up to find that we had run out of milk. And so we decided to get into our little car to go to the nearest village grocery store. Now, my wife went in while I waited in the car, and no sooner had she gone in than she rushed out. Horror was written all over her face, and she said to me, "Race riots have broken out in Kuala Lumpur." Now the lady who owned this little shop, on seeing her, because we had been quite regular customers by this time, we had been there more than a week now, and she said, "Your country is burning." So my wife said to her, "You're talking about Vietnam, surely?" Because if you recall, in 1969, the war in Vietnam was still very much in the news. Then she pointed to stacks of different English papers, Times, The Guardian, The Telegraph, a whole lot of other papers. And we then realized that something that we had never expected to happen had indeed happened in our country. Now, to me, who had grown up believing in unity in diversity, which those of you of my generation will remember was also the motto that was incorporated in the Federation of Malaya's coat of arms. Unity in diversity, and this is something that I thought would never happen in this land of ours. So to me, it was, in a very personal way, a terrible experience. You call it misguided national pride or misplaced personal arrogance, but the idea of people killing in the streets and torching homes was something I thought only happened in other countries, not in my beloved Malaysia. We knew street demonstrations were a regular feature of life in Jakarta, in Manila, in Bangkok. So, Malaysia? Never. Just as I thought in the 60s that corruption only happened in other countries. No corruption, please. We are Malaysians. But then, we become wiser as we grow older. Deep down, I knew that there were millions upon millions of Malaysians who were decent, God-fearing, and all they wanted and all they want today is to live in peace and harmony. Under a government that is just, fair and inclusive. Unfortunately, those sentiments of 40 years ago remain largely unfulfilled, even as I speak now, because subsequent official policies have done little or nothing to create a sustainably united and viable nation, grounded again in justice and equity for all, not just for one community. Now, May the 13th could have been avoided. While I have no intention of turning these very personal remarks into a blame game, the evidence of political manipulation to pander to personal ambitions for power is compelling. And politicians of all party stripes, and that includes my own party, must come to terms with the part they played in fomenting the worst racial violence in our country's history. And by doing that, they put the clock of nation building back by 1,000,000 years. This is what a friend of mine said, by way of underlining the great tasks involved in picking up the pieces after May 13th. I believe that in our present troubled circumstances, the most important role politicians can play is to identify and examine dispassionately those social, political, and economic causes that can possibly lead to racial disunity, and then set about rectifying them. The government must learn to recognize that these are issues of great national importance, and they must not ignore the role of the opposition parties, the role that we can play in this very critical mission. Now, if there is one thing we can learn from the lessons of 13 May, it is that we all have to be prepared to make substantial adjustments. Because we have a lot of fair weather Malaysians, they can uproot themselves and disappear to greener pastures, and good luck to them. I'm not concerned with these people. I'm more concerned about the rest of us. Malaysians who will be here through good and bad times, either by choice or through force of circumstances. It is for all of us remaining that we must do all we can in the name of justice and common humanity to ensure there will be no justification or excuse whatsoever for a repeat of May 13. It was a blot that we can do without in our otherwise clean record of race relations.